Hello, everybody. Ella J here on behalf of WrestleZone, and today I'm joined by one of Australia's fastest rising stars, Lena Kross. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fantastic to be catching up with you. You've had a hell of a year, my friend, which we will get into in a bit. But the last time that we were talking, you were talking about your hope to really get the gas pumping on your career and expanding your horizons. The first step in doing that was obviously moving out of Perth and relocating to Sydney. Obviously, a much bigger city, but more importantly, it made it more accessible for you to travel and have all these more opportunities. So, can you talk about how this move has impacted you personally and professionally?
Yeah, that feels like a lifetime ago
Yeah.
we had that chat. Um, but both personally and professionally, the move was 100% the best thing.
Yeah.
Personally, I was going through a lot of things back in Perth, and removing myself out of there gave me opportunity to really just focus on myself without worrying about anyone else. So I think that was really important with where I was in that time of my life. And then professionally, like you said, just the accessibility of being in a highly populated city and closer to other highly populated cities where Perth is the most isolated city in the world. So getting yourself out there is that much harder. Um, and yeah, as I've seen the last year, being based over on the east coast of Australia definitely helped my professional career.
Yeah, and as per your Instagram bio, you dream of traveling the world, which you've been able to do quite a bit since the last time I talked to you, especially in the last year. We'll talk about your ventures into the United States last year, first of all, which primarily was in association with WrestlePro, where you competed
Mm.
to crown the inaugural WrestlePro Women's Champion. You competed in the tournament. So, can you kind of talk about your experience in that tournament, which then led to you facing Lady Frost in the finals?
Yeah, so I emailed, messaged Kevin Matthews, who is the main guy in WrestlePro New Jersey, because WrestlePro
Yes.
has two schools. They have the New Jersey and New York.
Mm,
So
yeah.
I was with the New Jersey school, and he was like, "Yep, come down." So I spent a couple weeks training, and he was like, "We'll get you in this tournament." So I was like, "Amazing." And then did the first match, and he was like, "I'm thinking maybe we can have you in the finals." And I was actually originally supposed to leave America 2 weeks before that final.
Oh, wow.
So I was like,
Hmm.
okay, I'll change my flight. So I ended up
Yeah.
like changing my flight, pushing back the 2 weeks. I ended up flying out the day after that final. And yeah, that match with Lady Frost, I'm really proud of. I think we put on a really good match for the inaugural championship for them. Everyone was happy with it. It was so much fun. The chemistry me and Frost have is like we just clicked like that. She's amazing, so talented, and I was really thankful that I had that opportunity to kind of show out.
Yeah, and hopefully we get you over here in the States again soon. I know you've done some non-wrestling travel here, but in your
Mm-hmm.
survey of the talent in the States, are there any certain competitors outside in the US landscape that you hope to get to work with in the future and why?
Oh, in US, see, I didn't really have that much of an opportunity to meet too many um, that I really would like to. I feel like most of the the talent have been picked up in the last couple years.
Fair point.
So yeah, especially with AEW, like they just kind of, and even WWE, like a lot of the talent is just picked up. But 100% Steph DeLander, because she's still in the independents. She's one
Yes.
of my best friends. Yes, I want to wrestle her again. She's at the top of my list. She's always at the top of my list.
Y you know, that's totally fair, and she's been obviously making a name for herself now back on the independents with and without Matt
Mhm.
Cardona, depending where she goes. She's had a heck of a run, and like I said, you've obviously been to the States for some non-wrestling occasions as well. I've seen you take trips to Florida, Vegas, Memphis, a lot of places. So what are some non-wrestling aspects that you've enjoyed about your travel to the States?
Experiencing what each city has to offer because they're so different. So, like, you can be in Vegas and it's all lights and no sleep, and then you go to the Grand Canyon and like Arizona, and it's just this beautiful scenery. Um, so being able to experience the various, I guess, things that America has to offer, depending on which state and city you're in, um, was really special. And I'm glad I got that opportunity. New York was one of my favorite places. So I definitely want to get back there in the wintertime to see it like snowing and
Yeah.
white. And yeah, that's something I do want to do that's non-wrestling related.
Have you this may be a dumb question, but have you experienced snowfall in your lifetime so far?
So the only time I've only seen snow two times in my life. The first time was only in 2018.
Mhm.
In Australia, there's some snow in the mountains in Victoria and New South
Yeah.
Wales. So I went and did like a snowboarding trip. That was the first time I ever saw snow. Second time was in Alaska this year with WrestlePro, but it was obviously changing the
It
seasons
was
and the snow
April,
was
yeah.
old, so it was really icy, but I was still just fascinated with it. So I'm just out there kicking this ice and like stomping on it, and you've got all these other wrestlers just watching me being like, what are you doing? Like this is snow, this is so exciting. But we were actually driving from one city to another, and it was snowing while we were driving. So that's my only experience of actually seeing snowfall, is in a car.
You know, that's fair. I'm just used to it all the time, but I know since you've mainly been in Australia your whole life, you know, other than occasional travel in the last couple of years, you haven't really had that opportunity. And I think you were in Alaska in April-ish, so like you said, it was kind of
Yes.
changing. Pretty much springtime, but it's also like Alaska, but it's also getting a bit warmer. So like
Hmm.
that's fair. We need to get you over here in like early spring or like winter or late fall, like somewhere in that, you know, time period. So hopefully we get you back here soon. But I know last year too was also another huge another huge opportunity for yourself on the other side of the world. You made your debut for Sendai Girls, which has now evolved into multiple tours of Japan, with your most recent one taking place from late October to mid-November. From what I recall, I believe this debut was originally supposed to happen in 2020, but was then stalled by the pandemic.
Correct. Yes. So originally 2020, and then it was just, we'll see how things go. When the world kind of opens up again, we'll invite you back. So I kept that connection with Miko, and she actually messaged me when I was in America, asking me if I was available for those dates. And it was a week after I was due back to leave again. So we had to push it back because I had to. So I flew in, I think on the Monday, Tuesday, I know, Sunday. I got in Sunday. Monday, I had an appointment at the embassy, handed in my visa. I picked it up on the Friday because it was a 5 day wait period. I flew out that Saturday.
Wow.
So I was literally home just to get the visa sorted, and then I was gone again. So I missed the first couple dates, but that that it is what it is. We made it work, and it was still a 2 week tour.
Yeah, so I mean, despite the delay, take us back to that moment, that first tour. What emotions were you feeling knowing that you finally fulfilled one of your longtime goals?
It was pretty surreal. Like I think my first match, I was just so nervous. Um, I think it was maybe like the second or third, and we were on the bus driving back um, to where we were staying, and I just kind of had a moment of reflection. I was like, "Holy shit! Like this is two and a half years later, and I'm here. Like I've done this." It's like that moment where it's like things come back around if you keep working, and opportunities will arise. So you've just got to stick to it and let everything play out because it will work out. Um, but yeah, I was really proud, and it was very surreal that I actually got there and got to do that first tour. Um, and it's even more insane that in the last year I've done four all up.
Yeah.
So yeah, insane. But I was very fortunate that at that first one, Millie McKenzie and Nina Samuels were also there from the UK. So it was quite nice to meet them and get to experience that with other wrestlers as well. It made it a little bit more special.
Yeah, and during one of your tours, you also had the opportunity to tag team with wrestling legend Aja Kong. So, and I mean, like, it was trios competition, but I mean, being on the same team as a veteran, a legend like that. Tell us about that experience.
Insane. Like, what is my life type stuff. Um, yeah, I think I found out maybe the week before or maybe 2 weeks before that
Hmm.
show. And I was just like dumbfounded. Like what
What
is
is
my life? Like
happening?
I'm wrestling in Japan and I'm tagging with this absolute legend and I'm doing like what? What is this? Um, but yeah, that was insane. Really good, really fun. Um, yeah, just insane. Like there's no other words.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, you've had quite a successful couple of runs in Japan at the time of recording this. You like just got home a couple days
Yeah.
ago from your most recent tour. And you've
Hmm.
said before that you've learned a lot while you were obviously over there and still probably to come. But can you tell us some of the things you learned about yourself or about wrestling through your time in Japan so far?
Yeah, I think learning the different style, because it is a different style than what we learn in Australia or America. There's different aspects and components. How you put a match together is very different. Obviously, with language barriers as well. So it's kind of like if I look at myself on that first tour compared to the one I've just done, it's definitely allowed me to grow more confidence in myself, definitely as a performer and being able to adapt to different styles. So in Japan, like obviously my size and being able to work around that with those girls, I would say is probably the biggest thing I've learned um, there, but also just training at the dojo and training with the Sendai girls. They're next level like workhorses. They are just nonstop. They go, go, go. And being around that, you're only going to improve, not only physically, but mentally. Some of the things they do is completely different to how I've learnt it here. So being able to learn a move or a transition that I already know, but in a different way, Um, yeah, it's just so important to keep learning and keep evolving in this industry, because when you stop learning, you stop improving.
Yeah, and you've made a lot of strides, and you were training a lot and also wrestling a lot during your time there. But I hope you at least got some time to explore the scenes while you were out there as well. So of the time that you did have to explore, what aspects of Japan stood out to you?
I love the culture. Japanese culture is great. The food is amazing. Every meal, without a doubt, is delicious.
Yeah.
Um, but spending most of the time in Sendai, it is a smaller city. So there's not a lot to do compared to Tokyo.
Yeah.
Um, so it's more around eating and drinking. But in Sendai, I found my favorite pub. I'll shout out the Swan. Millie would agree. Best beers. But Tokyo, same thing. I feel like it's just that like eating and drinking and kind of going out, and like you have your sightseeing things that you can see. Like I went to Disney Sea this tour, which was so much fun. Um, but there's just something about Japanese people, and it's amazing. I love it. I can't even remember what
Yeah.
you really said, but
No, just what aspects of it really stood out to you or that you like enjoyed outside of all the wrestling parts, basically.
the food and drinks, definitely.
Now, what was your drink of choice during these trips?
Beer. So the Swan
Whatever.
does the best Guinness. I am not a Guinness drinker.
Mhm,
Like I've tried it, and maybe like the first two sips were good, and then it just doesn't get good.
mhm.
But the Swan's Guinness, the whole pint is good. Recommend if anyone goes to Japan and they go to Sendai, you have to go pub the Swan. And then they would rotate their beer like every week, the other
Yeah.
three on tap. So we'd go in every week and just try the new beer. Obviously on off days when we're not wrestling.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, drink a lot of beer. Oh, and salty lychee, which is um like a rehydration drink, but it's lychee flavored.
Hmm.
So that was a good find.
Good to know. I don't know when or if I'm ever going to go to Japan because expensive flights, but that's a dream,
Yeah.
So I will keep
Hmm.
that in the back of my mind and I'm going to take your word for it. So thank you. Anybody
Yes.
going to Japan? Lena has some good recommend. She's been there multiple times now, so I feel like you can trust her.
Hmm.
Kind of taking it back, the last time that we were talking, we talked about some of your basketball background, but besides basketball and obviously wrestling now, what did your younger version of Lena envision the older version of herself doing when she got older?
Oh, depends what. So like when I was diehard watching wrestling, it was I want to be a wrestler when I grow up.
Yeah.
And then I was actually having this conversation with one of my other friends, trying to think about what was that job like as a kid. And it wasn't like a doctor, it wasn't anything like that. It was actually a TV travel host. Like I remember watching, I can't even remember what the show, but it's where like they go to different
Yeah.
cities and countries, and they basically show you all the sightseeing things, and they tell you how much it is. And I remember watching that and I'll be like, that is the coolest job, being able to travel and show people all the different things you can do in that
Mhm.
particular city or that particular country. I was like, that would be such a cool job. So I would say that as like younger self. I've always had this desire to travel. and see kind of what else there is in this world apart from what we know where we grow up. Um, so yeah, traveling. And if you get paid to travel, even better.
You're
So I'm kind of
talking
half
you're
living. Yeah.
yeah. It's
Yeah.
combining, your athletic kind of background with that with your love of traveling. So
Hmm.
maybe you did end up finding the right thing for you, you know? You're also kind of
Yeah.
showing like your travel too via your Instagram. So that's like a
Hmm.
collection you can always look back on. Now it's just, I guess, like making recommendations and stuff. You can do that in multiple forms. I think that's really the only other thing that you have to do is just make some recommendations along the way.
I think you're onto something. I'm just thinking of like, what sort of content can I create here? Like,
Yeah.
this could
Yeah.
work.
I don't know if you're up for like building a YouTube channel and all of that, but like you could. That's another avenue to go, or via your Insta.
Yep.
People like Reels. So like Reels might be the way to go. I don't know, just something to consider.
Yes, I have heard that.
You've obviously grown a lot. You were talking about how you've learned so much in Japan, but just collectively so far, confidence was one you said. How do you think that you've grown as a person and as a competitor so far in your career? You're going on what, year 7 now? Or you're on year 7
Yeah.
about that right now? Yeah.
I think it'll be 7 years February next year. So
Yeah.
almost seven, which is wild. Um, Wrestling has taught me a lot. Um, it can be pretty cutthroat at times. So having that ability to, keep going, that resilience, to like being mentally tough. Um, Obviously, in the ring, yes, but it's a mindset that you have to have all the time because there's so much that goes into being a wrestler that a lot of people don't see. It's going to the gym, it's training, it's social media, it's, having all these components just to have 10 to 15 minutes on a show. Like, I think a lot of people don't realize the sacrifices and how much effort and time actually goes into doing this. And don't get me wrong, like there's different levels depending on where you are and what you want to
Yeah.
do. Definitely when I first started, like is very different to where I'm at now because my mindset was still I'm just starting wrestling, but I'm also playing basketball. So it was split between the two. And then it changed when I stopped playing basketball and I solely started wrestling. But even now, like definitely the gym side and working out more has increased this last year as well. Um, but being able to, because no one's going to give you that motivation, no one's going to make you do those things. You have to do it yourself.
Yeah.
So having that mindset and um, drive, like of course there's going to be some days where it's not going to be there. And there's some days where, you're off days and that's completely fine because sometimes we need those self-care days where we just separate ourselves. But then being able to jump back in and realign your goals and go, okay, how can I move forward? So I think that's probably one of the biggest things I've learned, along with other things in my life external to wrestling, but having that mindset and being able to individually go, all right, how can I make this happen?
Well, you've had an amazing thing happen, a growth that has earned you a spot on the 2023 PWI Women's 250 list, where you cracked the top 100 in your first time on the list, by the way,
Hmm.
coming in at number 92. Can you talk about your initial reaction to finding this out and also what this kind of honor meant to you?
I had no idea. Like I I didn't even know it was the day that the list was being released. And then I got tagged in a post on Twitter. So I went and checked it out and I was like, oh fuck, like 92.
Yeah.
What? Like completely shocked. Because I hadn't been on that list. And obviously, like out of 250, that's insane, like to think about. So my initial reaction was complete shock, because I wasn't expecting it. And then pretty proud of myself because, looking back at the year I had, I did a lot. Um, and I guess it is nice to be recognized, that the work you put in is being seen by people all over the world. And to have that recognition along with so many other great women wrestlers is fulfilling, I think, really fulfilling. But also at the end of the day, like I said, like it's mindset, it's a list.
Yeah.
And it's nice to be recognized and to be put in the same category as so many other talented and amazing women. But it's one day of the year and it's like, okay, let's keep pushing, let's keep going forward. Let's make this next year better than the last year. And whether I poll, but it's at the end of the day, it is a list. It's nice to be recognized, and I feel grateful that I am a part of that. Um, but it doesn't add up to really the bigger picture that I want for myself, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
No,
I
it
don't know if
makes
that
sense.
sounds bad.
No. No, like take a moment, but obviously, keep moving forward and don't let not don't become complacent, essentially, I think is what
Yes,
you're saying,
yes.
and obviously before we look toward the future in 2024 now, I kind of wanna again, we've talked a lot about this year. You said 2022 for you was a year for the books. You said at the beginning of this that we said at the beginning of this you left Perth, you traveled to new countries, completed some bucket list items, you pushed yourself out of your comfort zone. Fast forward now, a year later, we're now headed toward the end of 2023. How would you summarize or I guess assess your 2023 year from a personal and professional aspect? Because the new year is right around the corner. I know that
Hmm.
post that that summary post, reflection post is going to be coming up. How would you summarize your 2023?
Hmm. I want to say something like it was just wild. Like I had so many moments this year. Like you were saying, like the start of 2020, it was all about change and growth
Yeah.
and pushing myself out of comfort zones so I could get there, get the growth and, get the change that I wanted. This year, I think there was a lot of experiences and opportunities which, confirmed that the path I'm on is the right path and confirmed that the work I'm doing is working and that I'm in the right spot, that where I'm going is where I'm supposed to be. Like, obviously, the tours of Japan, going back to America, doing Alaska, doing the World Series tour. Um, there was a lot of moments in there where I kind of sat back and reflected and went, I belong here. This is, I'm keep working. It's all going to come together. It's all going to work out, um, which is a nice feeling when obviously so much negative things and can kind of slow you down. So having a few of those moments where you're like, yeah, this is where I am. This is where we're going, and all this hard work is paying off, and you just got to keep pushing and keep going.
Two more questions for you. Let's talk about one of those moments that you mentioned, World Series wrestling. There it was. I want to say like a 4 5 day tour, 6 day tour, a short tour, but did some travel around Australia. But on that first day, you were a part of Cassie Lee's return match to the wrestling scene after giving birth and being away for like a year and a half at that point. It was a part of a tag team match, you and Jessica Troy teaming up. Tell us
Yes.
about being a part of Cassie Lee's return, and also, I mean, teaming with Jessica. I don't think you two have done that too often.
Yeah.
Tell us about that moment being a part of Cassie Lee's return, and just the whole tour in general.
Yeah, it was special. Like she was obviously quite nervous to get back in, and being able to be a part of that for her um, is obviously a special moment, especially what she's done for the Australian scene and particularly women in Australia. She's one of the leaders that has left and gone, and she's paved this road that has allowed other wrestlers in Australia to venture out and go, okay, that's what we can do as well. Um, so it definitely was special to be a part of that moment for her. And then being able to tag, you're right, I actually don't think Jess and I have ever tagged. We've had some singles,
Yeah.
but she's incredible and so talented. So it's always fun being in the ring with her, and tagging along her was even more fun. But yeah, that first tag was special, for sure.
As we wrap things up here, at the time of recording this is going to be coming out at the end of December. 2024 is quite upon us. So, as you're kind of looking at the new year coming up, what are some of your personal and professional goals for the next year, besides obviously traveling more?
Yeah. So this year I quit a 9 to 5 job,
Amazing.
um, and I kind of that day I made a goal that I never want to have a 9 to 5 job again. So 2024, that's going to be one of the main goals, is working towards putting things in place where I don't have to work a typical non-wrestling 9 to 5 job.
Yeah.
Um, Continuing to travel. That point in December, I'll actually be in America. Yep.
Mhm.
So, um, yeah, having more opportunities. America, Japan. I'm hoping to go to the UK 2024 as well. So just do as much travel, continue building the Lena Kross brands, and yeah, continuing on this path that has really accelerated the last 2 years.
And make Lena Cross a household name. I know is another one
Hmm.
of your major goals. I think you're well
Yeah,
on your way to accomplishing that, Lena. So thank you so much for
thank
chatting
you.
with me here today again. Before we let you go, can you please share where the listeners can find you online and support you?
Yeah, Instagram, Lena_Kross. Twitter
With a
is the
K, by the
same.
way.
Yes, Cross with a K. And Twitter is the same, I believe. Yes, Lena_Kross with a K. They're my two main platforms. So definitely give me a follow and see what I'm up to and where I'm at. And yeah, hopefully 2024 is just as big or bigger than 2023.
And especially, we look forward to your mystery ventures into the States next year. Looking forward to that. Lena, thank you so much for chatting with me here today.
No, thank you for having me.